Keira, it's so good to have you on the podcast. And, it was just so serendipity, wasn't it? You and I, we were both at this event. I think it was the Glasgow University Scottish and Celtic Studies event. A friend of mine was giving a talk. And you were in the audience, and then we got chatting afterward. It's just good when that happens, because you started telling me about the stained glass, and I was going, well, I must go and have a look. And, after we got chatting, and I think at one point you asked me what, sort of thing I did, and I heard myself telling you that I, helped run a podcast supporting Scottish independence, and it kind of kicked the conversation that we were having on a bit. And actually afterwards I thought, it's interesting I did that without much thinking, because often, I am a bit selective about who I'll just say that if it's complete strangers, Anyway, I kind of twigged from the reaction between us after that. I thought, I think we're on the same side of this constitutional argument. So that was like another even kind of better outcome from it. But yeah, Fiona, I mean, we just so enjoyed that day driving round Glasgow. Although,
which libraries did you actually visit?
Well, I picked Fiona up from Queen Street Station, so we went out to Easterhouse.
Okay, brilliant, yeah.
And then,
yes.
And then we went to Govan Hill.
Oh, aye, there's loads there, yeah.
And then we went to Pollock. It's not Pollock Shaw's.
Pollock Shaw's, yeah. John McLean's old stomping ground.
That's right. Now, separately, I'd gone up to the one the day before, a couple of days before, I'd gone to the one up at Woodside, but we didn't get there with Fiona. So we had this wee safari, and we went into that Easterhouse library, and it's sort of, we had cameras and stuff, so it seemed, I said to the librarian, hope that's okay, we want to take some photos of the stained glass. And the woman went, oh, yes, I'll show you where it is. And she took us all the way up, talked us through it. Yeah. Really, she's obviously really proud of the whole thing. And I mean, once I kind of stood there and looked at what's in it, I just thought, no wonder they're proud of it, because it's brilliant.
Well, I think part of it as well is that the reason we gift it to the local libraries or local municipal libraries is that they then set book lists around it. They do other community outreach around the windows. So it's a kind of anchor for like local radical history or histories of resistance that they can then just run with and play with, The library actually, that window rather, I'm working with that group just now. We can talk about it a wee bit later if you want, on a workers' theatre project, but also the wider project is really about setting up a community archive and using the things that we unearth and discover to create new work.
Yeah.
So we can also use it in like contemporary struggle.
Yeah, fantastic. It's
So
just, and I noticed that the one up at Easterhouse, at one point it says, whose scheme is it anyway? And because Easterhouse, it's kind. I mean, the reputation may not be deserved, but nevertheless, within a Scottish ear, you hear Easterhouse and you go, I don't want to park my car up there, kind of stuff. And and I just thought it's brilliant, absolutely fantastic.
That's kind of the thing that we're unearthing, where through books and articles and testimonies and history and film, there's such a rich history of resistance, and partly people were organising in Easterhouse because they were being referred to as the underclass, and it was this reaction that got people organising to say, no, we are people. You've built basically a new town without the amenities of a new town. This housing is substandard. These are systemic issues. We've not been dealt a fair hand here. So really, the work of the archive and all the kind of work we do is really about trying to change that.
This is just a detail from the corner. The thing I really loved about them was just how much detail there was in it. But also it's that mixture. It's not, you've got your traditional stained glass in the lead, but then it's painted, I presume, and then you've got bits of what look like newspapers, and there's a bit of a map there. It's wonderfully detailed.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a maximalist. That's just what you get with me as well. Like, my thing is, I want you to read it, and every time you look at it, you see something else, something new. And also, I love that kind of DIY fanzine kind of look. So everything looks a bit like that.
It's almost a pop art kind of feel to it, some of it, yes.
That's just what you get when you get me, basically.
So how did that project get going? I mean, was it you that approached the people in the area, or did they approach? How does it get going?
So we kind of started with the first windows we ever did were about 10 years ago, and that was at Govanhill Library.
Okay.
And that came through an amazing community worker called Kum, who was this little pocket rocket Sikh lady in Govanhill. And when we used to have community development workers in libraries, right, which we don't really have anymore. And I had been volunteering. I grew up in Govanhill, and I'd just been volunteering in different art things, trying to get my practice off the ground. I was working more as a traditional stained glass artist in a studio that I run with my husband called RDW Glass. He's a big yeser as well. We are the Yes Studio. Okay, we lost so many unionist clients, but that's fine. We gained so many Yes clients over the period. We did loads of different things. Anyway, we can go talk about that later. But, that was the first window, and we just started. That was her kind of idea, and we worked with 50 different groups. In the community, we still are trying to get a Roma window because we feel like that's a neglected part of Govanhill history. But it was really good. So, but there was a big gap between those windows and the next window, which was the John McLean window, and that's because I had been approached by Henry Bell, who was John McLean's biographer.
Yeah.
We had a mutual friend, and I was saying to my friend drunk in the pub one night, "You should do a window. It's better than a stucco. You know, you can put loads more in a window." And it's less expensive. So he had mentioned this, and Henry was like, yeah. So that then became, once we'd had 2 windows, I was like, well, we've kind of got a trail. Let's do more. And it just became this kind of model, and we kind of honed it as we went. So that particular window in Easter House, I got us money from that. We applied to Glasgow Heritage, and they gave us some money to do it. But I've got an established relationship at Platform. I've been working there on and off for about 5 years doing different kind of projects, art stuff. But not always glass, you know, because people need convincing a wee bit. Oh, wait a minute, you can't change the fabric of the building. No, yes, you can, because stained glass is part of listed buildings. This is our job. We know how to do that. And people will vandalise it. No, they won't. Not if they've had a hand in making in it and they care about it. They won't. Yeah. So you're up against it a wee bit with that chat. But in general, people are coming around. So we've got one planned in Castlemilk. And I've actually done 2 in Fife. We're about to unveil one around mining, sort of really post-industrial areas, ex-mining towns. And again, working with the local community, looking at radical histories of mining, the role of women in housing associations. So, yeah.
It's just fantastic. I mean, that one, the one that's at Woodside, that's all about women voting, isn't it? And I mean, I just went in. I mean, the same thing. I wandered in, said to the guy at the desk, I'm looking for the stained glass window. Oh, it's through there, blah, blah. You really like it. Wandered through, and I was just kind of, I went, wow, look at that. You know, I mean, it's partly because it is women and it's kind of about, you know, women voting and everything, but it's striking. And I mean, stained glass is a bit like that, is it? It can, if you've got the right light outside, it can come alive sometimes.
There he is.
There he is. And that, you're saying the light, because it was coming straight in. And it was sunny as well. So the colours were so vibrant. But I loved all the detail and the quotes and everything, because we actually recorded Henry Bell doing a lecture about John McLean. That's a podcast that we've done already. So it's amazing how these sort of little threads knit together just as you're meeting people. I just thought it was wonderful. So that picture of him, the portrait of him, have you painted that on the glass?
Yeah, that's all painted. Yeah. And then the kind of red circle that's coming kind of from his hat, that's actually a type of glass you call flash glass or overlay, and you tend to see it in more Victorian closes on the borders, where it's a very fine layer of colour over clear, so you can blast it with sand or etch into it, and it produces this clear underneath. So it's a kind of different glass and techniques and all that as well.
I love that technique because it almost looks like it's been spray painted, you know, and there's another one that you did, but it looks like graffiti as well on a sort of coloured brick wall. Just fabulous imagination that goes into the design of these.
Yeah, it's good fun. Yeah. It's fun to do.
I don't know if we've got it here, but it's one from, it's from Govanhill, and I'm sure it's from Govanhill, and there's, you know, it's sort of about like when the women would take take all their washing into the steamy, and
aye.
and there's a quote about, and we just go in and we'll have a good wee gossip when we're in doing our washing. And I thought, God, it's just classic Glasgow, isn't it? It's just wonderful, that. I think it's great.
That was the potato famine.
We made that with the Irish Heritage Foundation. So they painted all that and designed it. I kind of helped facilitate. The John McLean one I just worked with biographers, but usually I do work with the community because it seems it's more meaningful. They make it. And also, I'm kind of about trying to keep the craft alive. One of the things I'm engaged with is we're trying to get a college course back up and running, and we're really close at the beginning of the year, and they pulled the funding 3 weeks before. But I've not given up on it because the last college course where you could do it full time was the one I attended 17 years ago, right? And since then it shrunk, it got joined with ceramics, it became smaller, it became a module, blah, 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 and it's completely gone. And Glasgow, Scotland, had one of the most but productive and world famous kind of stained glass industries in the 1900s. Big studios here. Many people had studios at the ages of 20, 21, and then they had studios in London, and it was really revered. And we've kind of neglected that part of our history, our heritage. And at the moment, you can learn it, but it costs a lot of money. Like you can do a conservatorship, but it's £25,000.
Wow.
How do you also do that? That's one person, whereas with the same money, you could put 10 working class people through a college course. They would come out the other end with a steady trade. They'd be able to do repairs. I mean, the problem is at the moment, we also don't have enough workers to save the glass that we've got.
Yeah.
There's just this whole thing in the middle where you need just job and stained glass artists to preserve it. And working class people at the moment haven't got access to that. So we are very focused about trying to democratise that craft, bring that back in, get a college course up and running. We're always kind of arguing with that. Stained glass shouldn't be this elitist thing. And, it's always been used as a storytelling device, but it's traditionally told stories of power.
Yes, one of the things we absolutely loved about looking at your work, isn't it great to see this fabulous stuff? And it's not a religious theme. It's just telling a story of contemporary. I loved that about it. Yeah,
it's really important.
It is. It really is. I was going to say it's not a cheap hobby, though, is it? I did a weekend class a couple of years ago. I did. Yes, I'll show you my masterpiece in a minute, which is not quite as good as yours, I will say. But
why did you not come to RZW Glass, Fiona? Because you didn't know me then.
It was just a Saturday morning thing, and I used to come through to I can't remember the name of the shop now. There's a studio and a shop in Glasgow, and it's got the glass, all the different colours, and it was wonderful. It was really hard to choose what to get, but by the time you've added that and lead and the diamond cutters and things and everything and the tools, it wasn't a cheap hobby. But I shall show you my.
Oh, it's
hang on. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can get.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, there it is. Yes.
And that was
wow, that's really good. Sorry, she said surprisingly.
3 months worth. But I love doing that because I was in this random group of people you meet on a weekend course. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty sure most of them were old Tories. So I thought, I'm going to do something that just sort of gets them talking. And as it was building up, they're going, what does it say? And I said, it's going to say yes. Why does it say that? Because it's very positive. And we were just sort of gradually. It was run by the University of Highlands and Islands. And it was in Kinross. I live in Clackmannanshire.
Okay.
So it was in Kinross. And they had this lovely little learning annex in Kinross. Right. But then they closed it because they decided it wasn't rural enough, which Kinross is fairly rural, but it was bringing people in from all through Perthshire and Clackmannanshire, and that folded because they got rid of the premises, and so that's it. That's
go on.
Well, tell us what you do. Do you run a sort of like workshops, and then do they actually end up doing some of the actual stained glass, or?
Yes, so I'll tell you a wee bit about our methodology. So as I say, I come from a working studio, so we do a lot of repair, restoration. My daughter works there as well. It's a family business. We've got 3 or 4 others that work for us on bigger projects. So that was fine, but for me, I just was like, I'm getting on a bit, being up ladders, working at height, running about roofs. This is not sustainable, right? So I just really loved always doing community work. I was kind of doing that on the side. I'm a WEA tutor as well, which is the Workers' Educational Association. Yeah. So I've got a bit of a knack working with vulnerable groups, or what you deem vulnerable groups, but of course people are resilient as anything and living in schemes, because I kind of come from that background. So anyway, it was really about marrying that joy of working with communities with glass and then my politics. I just can't, I'm a socialist, I'm a Republican, I'm for Scottish independence, so it's all kind of there.
Ticking all the boxes so far.
All the boxes. You've just ticked all our boxes. So
if this was Tinder, you'd all be on a date. Right? So it was really about trying to find a way to do that. Because also, I'm sorry, a lot of jobs we were getting were coming in from like property developers or buying churches. And I'm repairing windows, and our culture is getting absorbed by people, and we can't even afford to live in these flats. So it was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do that forever.
Yeah.
So it was really about developing a kind of methodology. So what happens is I started kind of fundraising for projects, and then you bring it to organisations. And then after, I've been doing this now 16 years, you've got relationships with things, and you put in applications all the time and they don't happen, but it still means down the line somebody might work with you, right? So what happens then is when we've got the money, we go in, and what I like to do is do a period of research. So you take the group comes with you on everything that you're doing. So we visit local archives, we bring speakers in to talk about stuff. They bring their own esoteric knowledge or specialist ideal knowledge to it, because loads of people are autodidacts, you know what I mean? Everybody's got good at something. And then from that, we collage all the stuff we get into a big cartoon. A cartoon is what we call the drawing to scale for the stained glass window. So collage is a good way of doing it when you've got like 10, 12 people trying to make one picture. So that's why they kind of look like that as well. It just lends itself to working with a big group. Yeah. And then I bring my mobile glass studio to the back end of nowhere sometimes. So we were doing it in like Carden Den. Takes me 2.5 hours to get on the bus, and I've got I don't drive, right? So I've got, because I'm working class, you know what I mean? So I've got my wee trolley and all that, but we just make it work. The tables aren't the right height, but there's things we can do, and then we paint, and I take it back and fire it at the kiln. And come back, and we just kind of do that for 10 weeks, and then I like to include a couple of studio visits so they get a flavour of a working studio. They've met the gang. My daughter often comes out and works on the projects with me. People like that kind of mother-daughter thing. We get on, we're great pals. So it just kind of works, and then we unveil it. So they're kind of involved with every single stage, research, design, manufacture. And that's what we do.
Brilliant. Does that change them, do you think? Do you then see communities go on and...
Well, absolutely. So from Easter House, Angela was so good that she now works at our studio 2 days a week.
Great.
I've got an apprentice just now, Jordan. His story is really mental. Like, so he just had a really rough go at it. Drugs from the age of 15, in and out of jail. He's now 33. He's been sober clean a year. But glass, he's just got a natural ability. He just picked it up and he loves it. So I'm going to be he's just now working with me. We've just bring him into projects. I mean, there's no money there. I'm not getting paid to do that. But he's so into it. It's like, if he's also got a criminal record, one of the things he can do is be self-employed. It's really going to be hard for him to work. So it's like, well, if I can show you this and you can do basic stuff, because what he wants to do is teach classes at recovery groups so he can pass them forward. Like, that's not out with the range of possibility. So I'm kind of working with him just now. But at the same time, we're being savvy and going, well, fund our next project, and here's Jordan and here's his story. We're doing it anyway, but we'll also be like, right, give us some money.
Oh, very clever, yeah.
But that must be so satisfying for you doing that. Jordan sounds like a lad that you're just kind of really been able to help, but just the whole thing, the way that kind of comes together like that, just must be so satisfying for you.
Well, it is. And I'd never, like, I don't really want to work another way. Do you know what I mean? After you work like this, it ruins you a bit. Because before as well, my partner is kind of the boss of the studio, and now he can't talk to me. I'm like, I don't think that. And he's like, oh my God. Because before I'd be like, oh yes, and it's just really
I can imagine it'd be brilliant for a sort of recovery group as well, because it's so creative. It's almost art therapy kind of element as well as the skill of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and people
really
sort of having to work together, and you know, I mean, there must be disagreements about, we're not going to put that in our way, kind of stuff, and talking that through. It must be brilliant.
It is. To be fair, there's never really. I do kind of have, like, even though it's a democracy, I'm still like, it's a benevolent dictatorship. I have final say because I think that's going to work. And then usually they always go, aye, no, that you were right about that. Once it's up in the light, you know.
Yeah.
But I keep in touch with loads. There was an ex-miner, Donald, who's made a window last year about the miners' strike. And it was so emotional when we unveiled it, and all these ex-miners from the area came, and they were just like, to see how they were demonised and blacklisted, to then see something positive come out of it. And he had been writing poems, right? Since we first met Donald, I love him, so I meet him sometimes for lunch, and he'd be like, I've done this before 30 years ago, hen. And you're like, okay. And then he couldn't do it, you know what I mean? You're like, right. So it was fine. So he was very, you know, I've done this, kind of, not cynical, because he's not, he's Mr. Community, but he was quite closed. You know, people coming in all the time, extracting value, artist groups, they see it all the time. By week 8, he was telling us that he'd written poetry when he worked in the pit, and he ran home during the class to get his book, and he came back and he read us all these poems that he wrote, love poems to his partner. So it's like, this was a different person from week 1 to week 2, and it wasn't that he was different, it was just that the way we work had allowed him to really be himself. And he wrote this amazing sort of poem that went into the window. Brilliant. So just things like that, you're like, it just makes
so whereabouts is that window?
That's in Kincardine Library, and it's quite interesting. It's now the start of a kind of mining art trail that was set up by this bunch of mining landscapes in the area. So it's just, again, it's just got this new lease of life through a different thing.
Yeah.
Oh, fabulous.
Really nice.
One of the events we went along to, well, it was, you know, Scottish Socialist Party lecture, and they were talking, that the whole thing was talking about the miners' strike and what went on. And you know, you kind of, well, you know, I lived through it, but our family has no connection with miners actually at all, and weren't affected by it. And then you hear this guy standing there talking about it. God, it really goes through to you. I mean, well, it wasn't an easy job or clean or anything like that. It was really hard. But you know, but then it's taken from them, you know, by our nibs, Mrs. Thatcher.
It's like in Scotland as well. It was much harsher sentencing. In terms of criminal sentencing and blacklisting, but also it wasn't just they took jobs, they took everything, because communities, it was their social life, it was their family, it was their housing was connected. So it was really about destroying the threat of the unions, you know, that solidarity. And now we are still seeing those effects of that generational poverty. When I work in these communities, still there. And they hate her in Fife, man. They hate Thatcher in Fife.
I know.
You'll find they hate her everywhere.
But my great line is, I was radicalised by a hate preacher. Her name was Margaret Thatcher, because I was born in 79.
God. So have you got any projects on the go just now?
Yes, I do. Well, this is so random, because you're like, how did you get from here to here? But I'm currently writing or developing, because it's more than writing it actually, a workers' theatre style play about the history of the Craigallian fire.
Oh, don't know anything about that.
Yeah, you have to tell me. Well, me anyway. I know nothing about it.
I had never heard it until we got a job. Maybe about, this is maybe 3.5 years of my life. This has dominated my life. We got a job at Craigallian House restoring stained glass windows. So we always kind of researched the house and the history and who owned it and who built it and blah blah blah, and the land around it. 'Cause my man's very influenced. He's really interested in land reform and all that. And the Craigallian fire is just kind of down from the house. So it basically was a socialist campfire that reputation has it in myth and legend that it burned continuously for 20 years. So it became a kind of destination in its own right. And it's right at the start of the West Highland Way, just outside O'Mulgee. And you can go and visit it. There's a cairn there that was placed there by two famous fire sitters' sons. But it was basically where the Carbeth huts grew out of that. William Ferris, Carbeth huts. You had communist, anarchist, socialist guys that went and fought Franco. Rose Kerrigan, whose husband, I think, died in the Spanish Civil War, she set up radical midwife sort of clinics just up from the Craigallian fire. Tom Weir sat there, Bob Grieve, Jock Nimland, he was part of the kind of movement, the outdoor working class movement. So I just became fascinated by this fire and the people who sat there. So really the play is about, there's two kind of elements to it. One is what it's about, and two, how we're making it. So one, it's about, could we have a Craigallian fire today? What is this fire and who sat there?
Yeah.
And that's really a question about land, right? And how we can access land. Because a lot of the talks around the fire, they opened up freedom to roam, right of access right away.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have happened without these conversations around this fire. And then the other thing is I want to make it in a much more traditional workers' theatre way. So what we've been kind of doing is I've been writing bits as it would go, because I'm writing in my spare time, right? And then we've been taking it to random places and performing it, bits, and then picking up weird musicians and writers and filmmakers along the way who want to be involved. So we're really creating it like an ensemble, kind of Brechtian way of doing it. And now I've got a bit of funding. So what I'm working on, the last scene of the play is about, the idea is that whenever we perform it, and it won't be in traditional theatre spaces, it will be in community centres and village halls and things like that, right? Is that we go up a few days beforehand and we do this workshop with local folk so they can tell their own fire stories, their own histories of resistance to that area. And that will always be the last scene of the play. It's quite a short play, right? So that's what we're making in Easterhouse now. And we're going to debut it in June for Glasgow International. They gave us some money. Thanks very much. We'll take it. And we're going to debut it in the Glenburn Centre in Easterhouse, because it's got like this nice history of activism through Cathy McCormick. And there's going to be a wee social and a rammy after it. And then Scotland play that night. So you're very welcome to join.
Well, I think we'll come. You'll need to give us a date. We'll definitely come to that.
Oh, yeah. It'll be a right laugh.
We'll need to go and visit the original site as well.
I know where the Carbeth huts are. I mean, I know up there, but I hadn't heard of that.
You've probably passed the fire. If you've walked from Mugdock Park to Carbeth that way, you'll have passed the cairn and the fire.
Right. I must have just not noticed.
It's just beside the loch. It's on the side, so you'll see. Yeah. But it's an amazing piece of history. I can send you loads of stuff, because my thing as well is about always try to share radical history with folk. You know. That's really the main reason for doing it. It's not really about having a play at the end of it. It's about the process and how we conversations and
Because how else do we know? I mean, we're constantly saying we didn't get taught Scottish history at school, and that level of stuff. That's almost your kind of community level. That's not the kind of stuff that's going to be widely known, but it will be in that location. So that sounds brilliant. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's good fun as well. Just nonsense, really. I'm not really a very good actor, but we have a go.
I think you'll be great. I mean, I never got taught any Scottish history at school. I mean, there was a Burns thing, so you learn some Burns poetry, but there was nothing. So I mean, it's been the last, I don't know, probably 10 years. So my kind of friends that I have shifted politically in the last 10 years. So they're more radical and more left wing than they were. So that's me. That's like me too. I've got that way. And one of them, who's a friend called Mary McCabe, and she's a complete activist. She just gets things done. I mean, she gets things done for Pensioners for Independence in the Glasgow group. She's just on it all the time. And at one point she said to me, I'm giving a talk on the 1820 Wars of Independence. Do you want to come? And I went, what wars? What? Radical. She went, what? I went, what? She went, oh, for good God's sake, just come. That was literally the first time that I'd even heard of that. Now, I wasn't a great one for history back at school either, and I probably wouldn't have chosen to study history, but nevertheless, to have that in your background, your nation's background, and never to have heard about it, and people that got executed, people that got sent to Australia. I just think, that kind of what you've been talking about, that kind of way of communicating local knowledge and people's feelings about it. People could be there with parents and grandparents who could tell them what that felt like, and that's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, part of our thing as well is to document this history and try and capture it as well along the way.
We ended up doing 2 podcast episodes about the 1820 radicals, partly because we'd never heard about it, but we found this 1820 society, and this guy, we had about 2 hours, we just sat and listened to this guy talk, and he was a wonderful storyteller. And then we went out and we found the executioner's cloak that had been worn is in the Sterling Smith Museum.
Fabulous.
We went to the stone with the Remember Baird and Hardy on it. Then I went up to record. There's a memorial in a field in the middle of nowhere where there was the last battle of these guys who and then they were overcome. There's only about half a dozen of them, but they'd hidden behind a stone wall, and that stone wall is still there in the middle of this field. So me and my son went and drove out there. I had a new car at that point, which I didn't realize was a front wheel drive, and I went into what turned out to be a midden and got stuck in the car and had to get somebody to come and pull me out. But it's quite an adventure. But it's amazing what's on your own doorstep.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is until you go looking.
But that's exactly, I think, the kind of projects we want to do, because I'm also just so interested in this stuff. I don't know any of it. I'm learning as we go. We're learning together. But that's the kind of thing I would do. You know, I would listen to a podcast about whatever, and I'd be like, oh, right, let's go and check this out. And that's what you want people when they come and see your play, or they come and see your window, or whatever it is. They've got that some spark, that thing that will continue on their journey to uncovering this stuff.
Yeah.
Somebody we're going to be chatting to next week, who's also an artist, has done it's sort of an educational resource, and it's about helping schools to combat racism. One of the things in her production was this, which again, it reminded me of your work, because again, it's a political thing, but it's something that a couple of schools have come together and they've done that. And I can't actually remember, was it Alex Gallagher, I think the name of the designer.
Oh, I know it is. It's Alec Galloway. He's quite famous.
Galloway.
That particular bit of stained glass is in the station. It's in the station down at Greenock.
Gurrick.
Right. Gurrick, right.
He's got lots of work that's where he's based. Alec Galloway, and he used to teach at Edinburgh. He's probably he's one of Scotland's best glass artists. He's pretty good. He's up there.
Apart from your play, what other projects have you got on the go? What are you thinking?
So that's kind of dominating my life. What else am I doing? Use your brain, engage. Oh, I'm working with limbless veterans at the moment. And teaching them how to make stained glass panels. And I'm working with this guy, Johnny. He's only got one arm, right? And you do tend to need 2 arms. Well, you've built a panel, Fiona, so what I love about him, he's just always problem solving. So we're and I'm learning as well, so we're coming up with ways in which to work. So we're doing that. I'm waiting on hearing if some money is going to come in for a much bigger project celebrating the general strike.
Right.
Because I would love to do we'll put in a bid to do a big window for that, but that one's up to the funding gods. We'll see. I'm working on a commission for a magazine that's based in London, a homeless magazine called Dope. Have you heard of it? It's quite cool. It does all 100% of the money from the magazine goes to the vendor. So they've commissioned me to do the front cover. So I'm going to make a panel, and I'm going to make a connection between housing crisis and homelessness.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to deliver the panel, and they can auction the panel off. And also photographs of the panel will be the front cover.
Fantastic. Yeah.
That's the idea. So that's pretty cool. So we're doing that. But with the play, we also got a bit of money from Community Land Scotland, which is not a place you would think. And we're hoping to kind of tour with that. So I've been meeting people like community landowners and people who've developed community trusts. Anybody, by the way, who has a community trust is a legend, because how difficult it is to buy a piece of community land. It was an eye-opener for me. And some you're like, would you even want to do that? Like the dedication that's required.
I was the chair of our development trust, and we bought we got the community centre, which had been the council, and they were going to close it, and it had the library inside it. So we were like, no, we'll do it.
Hands off, right.
And starting from scratch with just people who've never done anything like that, but just, we're up for it. But it's, it's huge hard work.
What's happening with that now? Fiona's a library safe?
The library is thriving. It's and the community centres is up and running. We now own it, and it does a whole range of classes and things. All sorts of classes.
But I mean, when people are trying to do something like that, then they've got an idea about how they could use local land, and it actually involves buying the land, maybe quite a big bit of land. I mean, it's true. The kind of stories you hear about that, it's years and years out of people's life, and then of course, the value of the land itself is going up and up usually all the time. So it's a bit like, a race you could hardly win. Or Leslie Riddick talks a lot about community land and the difficulty of it. She's been saying, the projects that she's been involved with, going back a bit, looks now at them and thinks it really would be almost impossible to do that now, just because of the amount of money that you'd have to pay out for the land, because the land value's gone up. It makes me so angry that.
Well, me too.
It's wealth being hoarded.
Also, the story of Glasgow, it's like the story of housing. I'm involved with I don't know if you know the Tenants Community Union Live and Rent, but the housing crisis is completely connected to, the land crisis, this rentier capitalism that we've always had in Scotland. We think about Glasgow and its poverty. I was watching some old documentaries at Glasgow last night, actually. One was called Lily Bank, and it's like a Magnus Magnuson BBC documentary, and it's what you would call a poverty safari. So it's like an academic at Glasgow Uni goes undercover and takes her granny's name and poses as a war widow, and she goes from the leafy West End to staying in it's just outside of Parkhead, this kind of notorious housing scheme, and then comes and tells us about how you could tell if a child had the mark of degradation and poverty. And it was just like, but there was some brilliant stuff in it, where just the local community had organised a tenants association to fight all this. And it was just like 15 minutes of footage from this meeting of them just, this is what we're doing. So it was kind of brilliant, but it was a very eye-opening documentary. But my point really is, caller, that connection to land, we've never owned our houses, we've never owned land of crofters, and we've been given substandard housing in part because we've never owned it, and we're still getting it. And it's like, so to me it's so important to make this connection with this housing crisis, why folk can't get homes in Glasgow, or where you've got second home problems in rural areas. It's all connected to this relationship we have with land, or we don't have with land.
Yeah, and the people that kind of somehow or other, whether they're just developers or, individuals, sitting on land, own it, watching it going up in value, doing nothing for it. And I mean, every Wednesday I'm over in Govan, and, you go past the Govan graving docks. I mean, it's the one bit of Glasgow riverside that's kind of open and not developed, because it's belongs to a developer. They've had it, they're waiting for it to get more and more run down. The basic kind of plans they've put up, to be fair to Glasgow Council, they've knocked them back, because they've been, we'll have a casino, we'll fill in the graving docks because we don't want that, and we'll have posh houses. So it's still there doing nothing. Glasgow doesn't have any kind of museum that's actually about about building ships, or anything about the fact that the connection between Glasgow and the slave trade. And one of the docks just round from the graving docks used to be called Plantation Dock, for a very good reason. The guys that owned Plantation Dock and all the bit of Glasgow round about it, their money came from the Caribbean. It should be ours. It's not. It shouldn't be sitting in the pocket of some developer waiting to make till it falls apart and has to get kind of completely demolished.
There was a bit of chat about the community actually trying to get together and buy that, and it was Suffolk Sun Govan, because it was so obscure and opaque, difficult, they couldn't do it. But they were kind of, people were using it, and young people were going there and having like parties and putting on like gala days and just doing that. And I kind of love that. But as you say, you're up against it with developers.
You are up against it. I mean, I did that group of activists in Govan. They did walks around Govan, around that bit of the river, and I went on one of them. Great. And at that point, you could walk right into the docks. It was open. I walked all around it taking photographs, and it's just this amazing place.
You know what we will need, though? We're going to need a museum of independence.
That's
when
true.
Come the glorious day. So,
Yes,
Keira, you're going to have to do the window.
No, I am. Yes, no problem. This is it as well. It's like independence, even if like you're not like as an artist, just what an amazing if you look at any country getting independence, the output, the cultural output that kind of happened since. I mean, I'm also sick to death of having, you know, my culture a little bit appropriated by a kind of managerial like class that all come from London, southern England, like that. You know, deciding if my play is Scottish enough, or you know, and I'm just saying that here because we're amongst friends, but that can be a little galling, and a lot of Scottish artists feel that, you know.
Yes, I can imagine.
But how are you feeling yourself about where we are now? I mean, we're 6 weeks from this election. It's really, Holyrood ones are always important, but this one really is important given the rise of Mr. Farage and co. But how are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling a little despondent about it. I don't know who's vying for my vote. I don't, you know, I mean, the rise of the right, for me, it's always good to know. We do a lot of door knocking, we do stalls, I do a lot of housing outreach, and you get a lot of misinformation from people and anti-immigrant rhetoric, but it's coming from, well, you know where it's come from. It's come from mainstream media, it's come from that kind of, they control all that. So we're really just in this battle on the back foot a bit about trying to explain that that's not accurate, that's not how housing works, that's not, but also just that there's a bigger picture at play. And then we I mean, what a horrendous couple of years we've had in terms for women as well, the Epstein files, all of it, but even just the political implications of that, how you're bought and sold, nothing matters. Like, I feel like there's a real despondency about parliamentary politics.
And it's power as well.
Yeah.
This week's podcast, actually, part of the theme of that was about the rise of the billionaire class and how, as a result, world order is, you know, law and order has completely disappeared because they can afford not to abide by it. And you sort of distill that down to local politics or Holyrood politics, and you can see the tendrils coming in because there's a whole load of money coming in to fight these elections that has come from outside Scotland, possibly also outside the UK. And
you're asking ordinary people to care about that when they see that that there's no accountability, and they're actually questions, well, does it matter? Do I matter? Yeah. So we're seeing people escape and they're just retreating into Netflix and drugs, whatever. You know?
And disengaging, I got a glossy brochure through the door yesterday from the Lib Dems. You know, there's about 5 of them in Holyrood. I've got no local representation, and yet they can afford the best.
I feel like I've never met one in real life.
No. I know, I'm not even sure they exist.
I live there.
I've heard of them, a bit like leprechauns, you know.
A rainbow? Sorry. What? Also, who joins the Lib Dems? Get a life.
I know. But if you're into making leaflets, though, they're a very productive source of income, I think, because they do have a lot of leaflets.
But the independence thing is always in the back of my mind. Like, for us to really make the kind of positive social change that I would want, independence is key to that. So anything that gets us towards that.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. It has to be for something. It's not just so we can wave more flags. It's actually going to improve life for our communities. And all these questions of who owns the land, do we have a king, all these things, you know, that should be ours to discuss.
Definitely.
Definitely.
I mean, we were just a couple of weeks back, we were over in Edinburgh. It was a hustings that was organised by the Edinburgh group of Women for Indie. There was a youngish woman from the SNP who's an Edinburgh councillor, and her name's Samita Kumar, and then Ali Maxwell was there from Scottish Socialists, and God, they were so good.
They were both really
and the
good.
different
That's
parties.
really nice to hear. I love
And
that.
there were different parties, but there was a load of overlap between. You could tell there was a load of
That's nice.
overlap about the kind of Scotland that they'd want to work for. And I just sat and listened to them thinking, God, I hope you pair of you would get in, because that's exactly who I'd want. They were just the kind of, intelligent, thoughtful. They could have a discussion and find out, where the common ground is, what you could work together, and then there's other things where you wouldn't be work together. But that's all right. That's kind of life, really, isn't it?
They disagreed really well as well, didn't they? There was things they didn't agree on, and yet it was sort of, I'll listen to your point, you listen to mine. Okay, you thought this, well, I disagree because. And you just thought, this is wonderful. This is how civilized people should do it. But
yeah, it was good.
Put women in charge. That's how.
I'll vote for that. Women in charge, I'll vote for that.
Yeah.
We would not have the two big wars that's going on at the moment, actually, if women were in charge of Russia, America, and Israel, and probably Palestine wouldn't be in the absolute mess it's in either. But
well, that's the thing. It's the angry old men. I mean, that's the same with all the, reform and everything else. And we've just had an email. The Institute for Government has invited us to an evening with Malcolm Offord.
I don't know who that is.
Malcolm Offord. Oh, he is
Lord Offord.
Lord Offord. He's failed upwards right the way through his life. So he's now in the House of Lords. And he's never been elected at anything. And he's the most wooden-headed, right-wing, self-entitled, arrogant head of Reform UK in Scotland. As well.
Is he? Sorry. Okay. Thank you.
But he's probably our greatest weapon, because to meet him is to hate him on sight. So I think if he could go around a lot more, that would be good.
I thought I might listen to that thing with Offord, because if nothing else, you can kind of pick up clips where he says something particularly horrible and then just put it onto TikTok or put it onto something else.
Well,
you're a better woman than me. I'd have an aneurysm. I think it's really difficult.
Yeah, maybe we
need people like you in the fight, Marlene, doing the dirty work, doing the work that needs to be done.
Take one for the team.
Yeah. I'm kind of a bit, I'm not exactly optimistic. I just sort of think if we don't get something out of this Holyrood election, I mean, I know the SNP are going on about, we get the majority SNP and that's a precedent for another referendum. Actually, I think that's a terrible argument. I don't think that argument's true. But maybe they will get a majority. At any rate, there's going to be a majority between the SNP and the Greens together.
Yeah.
So be back where we are at the moment. And I think at that point, if Starmer, Labour Party, just goes, we're not doing it, we're not interested. I think if that was to happen, at my age, I don't care if I get a police record for something. I think it's fine. It doesn't bother me. I mean, I understand it's not quite the same for someone who's got a job at risk, but I just think we need to go into civil disobedience.
I'm despondent about the parliamentary situation, but not the grassroots situation, because you've seen people organise, fight back, resist evictions in all different ways. Even the stuff that was happening in America with ICE, it was so inspiring to see the way communities were coming together, organising, and in part because a lot of that work had been happening. We're still there in communities chatting about this stuff, planning, showing solidarity. So I feel very optimistic about where we are, where most people are politically, but it's more just this disappointment with this parliamentary, this political class.
Yeah.
Really sorry. But totally.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing your bit, working with communities and creating beautiful things. So we all just do what we can.
Politicising folk along the way.
Exactly, yes. And we're sort of, 140 years old between us, and we're out there doing podcasts.
That's the other thing. I came across this reference to the Grey Panthers, right? And that's YouTube. And their catchphrase is "out of the rocking chair and into the street."
Maybe we should have. That's maybe what we should have called the podcast, the Grey Panthers. I kind of like
Panthers,
that. I think we might do something with that. Actually, it's such a delight talking to you.
Yes,
it's really good. And keep in touch. Let us know when you're doing things, because we can always pop along and
I would love for you to come to the show and maybe even review it. Give us a wee review or something.
Aye,
we could
definitely.
do that.
Yeah, definitely do that. Yeah.
I'll send you
Yeah.
an invite. I'll pop it in
Oh,
there.
that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
And if people wanted to get in touch with you,
RDW Glass. Just search us on Google.
okay,
Great.
fab. And if anybody wants to commission you to do a massive big work, I'm sure you'll be only too delighted to consider it.
Nice social rates. Don't worry.
Yes.
Good. Fantastic.
It was great getting to meet you both and blather. I could blather
You
all day.
too.
Let's take it to the pub next time.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to make sure you're following us and subscribe to us, then you get notified every time we put something new out, so you don't miss anything. That would be great. Also, you can click the little bell if you're watching on YouTube.
And sign up for our mailing list. You can do that from the website, and we always send one out at the beginning of each month to tell you what's happening. Last but not least, you can buy us a coffee on coffee.com.